Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, as you can see, we will be discussing some other fragrances from Rogue Perfumes. Again, I was thinking to review 5 or 6 fragrances. I have here 10 decants left that I have to cover, but we will see. We will see how many we will get to. Now, if this is the first time you are watching my channel perhaps, or you hear of Rogue Perfumes, I would highly encourage you to watch the previous video that I have just posted on the brand. I will add the thumbnail here. There I go in depth a little bit about the brand, what kind of products they offer, what are some of the key aspects that makes them stand out, and in case you are a regular watcher here on this channel, or a regular viewer actually, I don't want to repeat myself. So without further ado, let's just start. I think the majority of the fragrances that are left are inspirations. So again, let's choose. Okay, so let's start with Chocolate Heaven. This is their inspiration of Chocolate Greedy from Montale. If you have tried the Chocolate Greedy, you know that's a fragrance that smells like cocoa flavored biscuits with something a little bit sweet and citrusy. But I feel like the key or the twist is that as the fragrance develops, it starts to develop this gentle incense-like quality and this gentle yet present rich deep fruity facet, almost like a sticky fruity facet. Okay, so this fragrance, Chocolate Heaven, I think this is the regular EDP. Yeah, this opens up in a very similar manner to Chocolate Greedy from Montale. Yeah, it smells, this is a true edible gourmand, you guys. It legit smells like a packet of biscuits, those butter biscuits, but imagine cocoa flavored. So you have this beautiful, deep, dark cocoa powder aroma. And this is how this fragrance opens up. In the background, I pick up this buttery creaminess and a little bit of vanilla that I feel like contributes even more to this edible, realistic gourmand facet that this fragrance has. So I feel like it's safe to say when it comes to this fragrance, you need to appreciate ultra-realistic, borderline, edible, photorealistic, let's just say, type of gourmand fragrances. Unless you have a taste for this kind of fragrances, I feel like the level of, I don't think edibleness is a word, but the level of sweetness and how photorealistic this fragrance is will make it a little bit hard for you to fully appreciate it. Like I've mentioned, it opens up with that cocoa powder accord, that biscuity facet, and with a buttery creamy thickness about it and a pinch of vanilla. And I already start to pick up gentle citrusy facets, but the citrus accord, how it's done here, I don't feel like it adds the typical zingy acidic facet to the fragrance. To me, it's almost like if you were to bake this biscuit in my mind, you would grate a little bit of orange peel, you know? So it's a little bit sweet, orangey. It has somehow that candied orange peel type of effect. So you have here different sweet accords that all contribute to the sweetness, to the overall sweetness of the fragrance. Beautiful inspiration. To me, what Rogue Perfumes chose to do with this DNA, not only they made it ultra wearable, but they also took the gourmand notes, those edible gourmand facets, and they emphasized them even more. Meaning that as the fragrance develops, to me, this is more of a linear fragrance. I can say that I start to pick up that incensey facet that I pick up in Chocolate Greedy. I can say that I start to pick up that deep, sticky, fruity facet, you know? I don't pick those up. To me, this follows a pretty linear trajectory, like I've mentioned. It's just the vanilla starts to shine a little bit more. Slowly but surely, that cocoa powder facet will move a little bit more in the background, so it's not the highlight of the fragrance anymore. And the attention, let's just say, it's split equally amongst different notes to me. Yeah, photorealistic edible gourmand, ultra edible. I feel like the key word when it comes to this fragrance, photorealistic, that's the key word. Beautiful fragrance if you love fragrances like, of course, Chocolate Greedy, Choco Mask, if you love cacao from Fragrance World, for instance. But I feel like compared to cacao, this is even more edible, even more sweet, you know, even more photorealistic. So these are my thoughts on Chocolate Heaven. Beautiful fragrance if you love cocoa powder, and if you love an edible fragrance, if you want to smell edible yourself, look into that fragrance. Now, next, let's continue with this one. Let's continue with Alluring Essence. This, I have worn it myself. I've had this decant for longer than some of the other decants. And what I want to tell you is, on Dubai Collections website, because you can find all the fragrances, full bottles and decants on Dubai Collections website. I will leave it linked in the description box. But on the Dubai Collections website, you have 2 fragrances that both are listed under Rogue Perfumes, that both are listed as an inspiration to Love Don't Be Shy from Killian. I didn't really get a chance to try the other fragrance. I will add the name and the fragrance here on the screen. I'm thinking in my mind, again, I don't know because I haven't tried them, but I'm thinking maybe one it's a dupe to a an older formula, one is a dupe to a newer formula, I don't know. But what I can tell you about Alluring Essence, this is the most smooth, refined take on the DNA of Love Don't Be Shy. To me, this fragrance has sentimental value in a way because it highlights in such a beautiful way a honeysuckle accord, and I have such vivid, realistic memories with the smell of honeysuckle. Every time I smell honeysuckle, for some reason, it transports me back into my childhood. Yeah, and this highlights it in such a beautiful, realistic way. It's legit like you're under a honeysuckle bush and you smell that intoxicating honeyed nectar almost of a floral accord under the hot beaming sun. So the overall fragrance feels very warm. It almost feels like it exudes heat from within, you know? To me, it's a warm, sun-kissed type of fragrance. And legit, it's like you're on a summer break. It's very warm outside. It's like at noon, you know, so the sun is beaming. It's at its full force, let's just say. You're with your friends under a honeysuckle bush and you pick up that beautiful aroma of honeysuckle. Now take that, put it into a fragrance, but keep that realistic dimension of the honeysuckle accord. Add this beautiful this pink, again, bubblegummy, marshmallowy type of effect in the opening. This honeyed facet lingering, this almost syrupy of a honey facet, but it's almost like that syrupy honeyed facet comes from the flower nectar. You know what I mean? Like the floral accord is so warm and sweet and concentrated that it comes across as flower nectar in a way. I feel like you pick up a pretty similar honey accord in a fragrance from Guerlain, L'Instant de Guerlain, if I remember correctly. I will add the fragrance right here. Yeah, now think something reminiscent of that honeyed floral accord, but make it more modern, make it a little bit more girly, a little bit more youthful, a little bit more playful, you know? Not youthful in a juvenile way, but if that fragrance from Guerlain, let's just say it's a timeless blend, it's a classic timeless blend, meaning that it smelled good when it was released, it still smells good and timeless now, and I'm guessing it will smell good in like 10, 15, 20 years. You know, it's one of those memorable fragrances. Now, to me, compared to that fragrance, this feels much more lighthearted, much more playful, a little bit more girly, a little bit more giggly, you know? Because of the added, again, something pink bubblegummy or something pink like marshmallow, that type. For instance, if you're wondering what are some of the differences between this fragrance, Alluring Essence, where did I put it? Here. Between Alluring Essence and there's a fragrance from Maison Astrale called Fakhama, I will tell you the following. So this fragrance, this is much more refined, definitely much more refined. Nothing that hits your nose, nothing that feels sharp, nothing that feels flat, nothing that feels like it's dosed in a too much of a way, if you know what I mean. No, this is balanced, this is smooth, this is harmonious, all the notes feel like they are in harmony with one another, you know? Yeah. Whereas in Fakhama, I feel like in that fragrance, the opening is a little bit more, you know, like it has a bit more of an oomph. And let's just say, not necessarily in the most pleasant way possible. I feel like even when I have done the review for that fragrance, I've mentioned that to me, in the opening, that fragrance feels a little bit sharp. But if you give it again, like 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, it develops into such a beautiful fragrance. Fakhama I'm talking about. Now, this is good from the get-go. Also, Fakhama, I feel like it's a little bit more strong, meaning that it has much more of an oomph about it. This, I don't feel like it has the same oomph in a way, but at the same time, this lasts very well, you guys. This is a very oily blend, so the longevity is not an issue. A lot of people say this DNA is supposed to be ultra sexy and naughty and provocative and the sexiest fragrance ever. I don't know, I think it also comes down to what associations you have with certain scent profiles, because I can understand why this fragrance or this DNA in particular might be perceived as sexy for some, but to me, because it has such strong associations, the honeysuckle accord, because it has such strong associations with my childhood, I don't know, I wouldn't really use the word sexy to describe this fragrance. I feel like if anything, I would say it's playful. I would say it's uplifting, I would say it's happy, I would say it's sunny, it's sun-kissed, it's warm, it's solar, you guys. It's solar, and it's whimsical, it's fairy-like. So let's move on to this one. Okay, so this is a heavy one. Let's move on to Tuberose Delight. This is their inspiration of Tuberose Astrale from Maison Crivelli. Now, I feel like from the beginning I have to mention this is for Tuberose lovers. I feel like to fully be able to understand this fragrance. For a second, I lost my train of thought. To fully be able to understand this fragrance and to not be shocked or scared by how photorealistic again and how decadent and heady the Tuberose Accord feels, you need to love Tuberose facets. If you don't love Tuberose facets, I feel like the Tuberose Accord may be so overpowering to your nose that you will not be able to pick up much besides it, you know? Because I can tell you, first time I've tried this fragrance, let me tell you what I was expecting or not expecting, what I was hoping this fragrance would be. I was expecting this to be a very designer-esque type of Tuberose Accord, you know, that feels very creamy. But this is not. This is bewitching, you guys. This, to me, this is a modern witchy fragrance. You know, in my mind, when I think of witchy fragrances, for some reason, I think of Chypre fragrances like Magie Noire from Lancôme, you know, like, what was that fragrance called? Soir d'Orient from Sicily. When I'm thinking of witchy fragrances, those are the fragrances that come in my mind. So a fragrance that highlights a rose accord. It has something a little bit bitter, almost like a plant medicine concoction somehow, you know, and then you have this oak mossy woody combo that darkens and deepens the blend a lot. So in my mind, those are the witchy fragrances. Now this, to me, in my mind, this is the modern witchy fragrance, you know, so it's a little bit witchy but undercover, let's just say. I will tell you in a second how it smells like, but let me tell you how I feel when I smell this fragrance. To me, this fragrance, on the right woman that knows how to pull off this fragrance, this is intoxicating, this is sensual, this is seductive, this could be dangerous, you know, this is that dangerous kind of fragrance. So I was telling you that to me this on the right woman feels dangerous because it has something so raw and wild and untamed and animalic, and that comes across as very seductive and sensual on the right woman. On the right woman. Yeah. I don't know who that right woman is. I am not that woman. I think for me it's too overpowering, but I appreciate the artistry behind it. Yeah, it's very interesting. First time I've tried it, I was only able to smell a Camphorous Tuberose Accord and I was like, amazing. But no, this has so many hidden facets. It's just you need, first of all, you need to get your nose accustomed to this blend because like I've mentioned, it's quite overpowering. And then second, you need to test it again and again and again and again. And the more you test it, the more facets you discover because the more your nose gets used to this heady, decadent Tuberose Accord that's quite overpowering in the opening, the more you will be able to pick up besides the Tuberose Accord. The Tuberose, I don't know why my mind is like a Tuberose Absolue or something like this. So it feels very dense and rich and a little bit heady, but it doesn't smell indolic by any means, you know? But it does have an undertone of something green. And with this Camphorous facet, now the Camphorous facet is not as highlighted as you have in, there's a fragrance, Wayward Charlie from Paris Corner. It's not the kind of Camphorous facet. I feel like it's much more well behaved here. And it doesn't shine as much, you know. I feel like it sits behind the Tuberose and it just contributes to this wild dimension of the Tuberose Accord. But this is how it opens up. Slowly but surely, I start to pick up something sweet, and to me it still smells like this heady, decadent, witchy Tuberose with something a little bit camphorous, but I pick up this beautiful and very unexpected accord that to my nose comes across as a freshly cut, ripe, juicy pear. It's almost like you cut a pear, like you freshly cut a slice of pear, and it's so juicy that the juice bursts a little bit everywhere as you cut it. I'm imagining. Yeah, a little bit of juice gets into that Tuberose Absolute. This is how it starts to smell like to me. So it feels a little bit more inviting, you know, from feeling quite, not really closed off, but from feeling quite scary in the opening, it starts to feel a little bit more alluring, a little bit more inviting, you know, it's almost like now you're intrigued to discover it even more. Yeah, this is one of those fragrances that to me it's a creative fragrance. It's a fragrance that has something artistic about it. It's not the kind of Tuberose Accord that you have in fragrances like L'Interdit from Givenchy, My Way from Giorgio Armani. It's not that typical designer-esque Tuberose. It's like 10 times more complex and ambiguous and I don't really want to say challenging because I don't want to scare anyone off. But what I want you to keep in mind, don't purchase this fragrance looking for a bubblegummy sweet tuberose, because this is not it. No, this is such a complex tuberose, and it starts to get a little bit spicy. I pick up gentle, powdery, cinnamony facets that again contribute to the sweetness, but it's a different type of sweetness. It's a spicy sweetness, you know? You have that juicy pear sweetness paired with that spicy sweetness from the cinnamon. The tuberose is there in the background that feels rich and heady and decadent, but it does have a little bit of sweetness. The camphorous facet fades away more and more until I lose it completely, and I start to pick up a little bit of jasmine, something a little bit airy and powdery, this gentle, dry, woodsy facet, and this beautiful, warm, ambery-like richness. To me, I pick up more of the richness of an amber accord, like the body of an amber accord, and that beautiful depth that it adds to a fragrance, and that warming effect, you know? Yeah, so overall, this gets much more warm, a little bit more, like I've mentioned, inviting, alluring. Yeah, this smells niche. This smells niche. And I know this is such a generic statement to make, like, oh, this smells niche. Like, what do you mean? What do I mean by this? Is that it smells niche in a way that this was not created for everyone out there to enjoy it or to like it. You know, this fragrance was created for a very particular taste in perfumery, if you ask me. For a woman who's confident, for a woman who I don't know why in my mind she's very in tune with her body, with her power, with her energy, with her confidence. She's a very confident woman, but not the kind of confidence that feels mean or loud. It's not that, how do you call that? Performative confidence. This is what I was looking for. Performative confidence is not that. No, it's just this innate feeling of confidence that she exudes, you know? Yeah, this on the right woman, amazing. Okay, so Tuberose, you guys. This is that kind of fragrance that I feel like I could film a separate, dedicated review and I could talk like 30 minutes about this fragrance alone. Just about how the rose accord opens up, develops in the heart, dries down. This is such a beautiful, complex fragrance. First of all, let me tell you how it smells briefly, or at least my definition of briefly. And then I will tell you what fragrances it reminds me of. So it opens up with the chocolate accord. The chocolate accord in the opening feels a little bit more cocoa powder dominant. Think your dark chocolate. That's not very sweet, but it's more flavored and it's a little bit more dry. This is the chocolate accord in the opening, and behind this chocolate accord, I pick up gentle rosy facets. In the opening, the rose, it's your typical red rose. It's not the kind of red rose with patchouli or red rose with oak moss, so it doesn't have this after the rain green vegetation like or any of that sort of greenness about it. This is just like, this is your typical red rose, quite serious in the opening, quite cold as well. And I also pick up spicy facets. I pick up a lot of cinnamon. And one thing I want to highlight, the opening, it feels very chocolatey dominant. The roses in the background, you have the cinnamon that adds as an accent. And to me, this is pretty much it. But then as this fragrance develops, let's just say that the fragrance and the ratio amongst the notes starts to change quite a bit. So the chocolate, from feeling quite dark chocolatey, a little bit bitter, sweet, but very flavored, yet quite dry, it starts to feel more like a praline, so like a chocolate that's stretched out with a little bit of milk and much more sweet, you know, so it feels much more creamy, much more warm, much more chocolatey. The rose, you guys, the rose has such a beautiful development in this fragrance. Like, I don't know, whoever created this fragrance, like, again, amazing job that person did. This is outstanding. Like, genuinely, as a rose lover, for a rose lover, outstanding. This truly compares to, think rose calligraphy from Aramis, like quality-wise, to Jo Malone Velvet Rose and Oud, the extract version, to Shaga Food from Swiss Arabian, to Arijal Sheila, to Atar al Sheila, to all these fragrances that highlight a beautiful rose accord. This generally compares to all of those. Slowly but surely, give this fragrance, again, what, like 10 minutes, and you'll start to notice how beautiful it evolves. The rose accord, from feeling quite serious, it develops this richness about it. And the rose accord is a very similar rose accord you have in fragrances like Sweet Diamond Pink Pepper from Kayali. So it's a rose accord that in a way feels almost like Rose Absolute, but at the same time it feels very velvety. And it has a pinch of something vibrant that adds a lot of dimension. So the rose accord doesn't just feel like one singular round accord. It almost feels like you're smelling like thousands of rose petals. You know, you like dip your nose into different types of rose petals and they feel all velvety and raw and beautiful. And this is the rose accord to me. And now I start to pick up gentle tobacco-like facets in the background. The tobacco, I'd say it's somewhat a similar tobacco you have in fragrances like Tobacco Vanille from Tom Ford on one hand, or the Inspiration Amber Oud Tobacco from Al Haramain on the other hand. So it's a tobacco that has absolutely nothing green about it. If you're scared of tobacco, don't be scared of the tobacco in this fragrance. And it's paired with a lot of cinnamon, it's paired with a beautiful praline accord, it's paired with an intoxicating rose absolute type of accord, and something a little bit sticky and plummy. I don't know what that facet might be. It's almost like dried plums or something like this to my nose again. So it's such a layered fragrance, you guys. And if, let's just say, I take the chocolate accord, the chocolate accord reminds me a little bit of the chocolate accord you have in Jo Malone's Velvet Rose and Oud, the absolute or the extract version. Then you take the rose accord. The rose accord reminds me of the rose accord. Let's just say like 20-25 minutes from applying it on your skin, it reminds me of the rose accord you have in L'Extase Rose Absolue from Nina Ricci. But again, give it another 10-15 minutes, it reminds me so much of the rose accord you have in Sweet Diamond Pink Pepper from Kayali. And now take the tobacco accord. The tobacco accord reminds me of the tobacco you have in Tobacco Vanille, like I've mentioned, and Amber Oud tobacco edition from Al Haramain. But if you take that plummy facet and the cinnamon, it reminds me of Garam by Junaid Perfumes. So it's like you have so many different accents that from different fragrances that I love put together in this fragrance. Yeah, but this is one of those fragrances that has such a complex development. So I would say test it. Where is the decant here? Test it, you guys, because if you love the opening, you might not really enjoy the hard part, or if you enjoy the hard part and the opening, you might not really vibe with the dry down. I don't know, because this is such a complex fragrance, but to think that this is, again, 50 euros, 50 something euros, perhaps not even, because maybe I'm not doing the math right. Anyways, considering the price, you guys, I would put this fragrance in a price range like 100, 150 euros and above that even, you know, and to think you can get the quality you get when it comes to Tobacco Rose, the performance you get, which is amazing, the smoothness, the level of balance, how refined this fragrance feels for such a price, this truly is a steal. But again, for the right taste, you need to love rose. But if you love rose, this fragrance is that beautiful middle ground between a powerful fragrance, a fragrance that feels a little bit assertive because of a tobacco, that feels also quite feminine, quite seductive, quite alluring because of how the rose accord is done, and then you have this like fiery, spicy accents about it. So this is a gorgeous, complex fragrance, and even by just describing it to you, I don't feel like I'm doing justice to how beautiful this fragrance smells like. But if you're if you are a rose lover, if you're not a rose lover, it might not do much for you. But yes, I've even worn myself this fragrance, and it's such a beautiful fragrance. But what I want to highlight when it comes to this fragrance, keep in mind the dry down is mainly tobacco with a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of plum and a little bit of rose in the background. But if the chocolate is the highlight in the opening, the hard part is the rose accord, in the dry down is the tobacco for sure. So this... Yeah, okay, so let's go a little bit quicker, because this way we will talk about fragrances until tomorrow. So I grabbed Double Faced, this fragrance. You guys, this fragrance, I will be very honest, this is too much for me. This is an inspiration to something from Vilhelm Perfumery. Again, I will add it here on the screen because I don't remember the name. But this, you guys, this, how to even tell you how this fragrance smells like, this is one of the most ambiguous fragrances I have ever tried in my life. This is one of those fragrances that you smell again and again and again. But when it comes to describing what I'm actually smelling, it's very hard. It's very hard. And I'm not one to lose words when it comes to describing fragrances, because I can talk and talk and talk. But this fragrance, it's weird. Very weird. And don't get me wrong, very niche level weird, you know. It's not like that weird fragrance in the sense that it's affordable, cheap, that type. No, this is weird in the sense that it's ultra ambiguous, and for 1% of the fragrance lovers, let's just say. Should I spray it? Okay, let me spray it a little bit. This is too much for me, and I like to think about myself that I'm quite adventurous when it comes to fragrances. Now with this one, so this I will do just a little spray here because it's a lot. So this smells translucent, rubbery, inky, a little bit sweet, a little bit floral, but inky, you guys. I feel like the accord that stands out the most is this sweet, rubbery, a little bit medicinal, a little bit a little bit spicy with a hint of something floral and soapy in the background. And vanilla, I do pick up vanilla, but it's almost like in the last bit of the dry down, I'm able to actually smell the vanilla accord. It smells a little bit peachy, soapy, sweet, and a little bit floral. But then in the background, it's almost like I pick up something medicinal and almondy, but very medicinal, paired with something a little bit inky, paired with something that smells rubbery and sweet. Now imagine how all of these would combine if it would make them a little bit translucent. So it's not a fully opaque fragrance, though it's a heavy fragrance. This is a very heavy fragrance. Yeah, I'm struggling to describe it to you because I'm struggling to smell it because I feel like low-key kind of triggers my headaches. Beautiful fragrance if you have a taste, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this in a way that's like in a negative way, meaning that it smells cheap or that it smells, I don't know, yeah, overall cheap. I'm not saying it in this way. What I am saying is that unless you have a trained nose, unless you have a taste for more artsy, creative, ambiguous fragrances, but think ambiguous and then take it a few levels above, you know, I'm struggling to see how you could understand and appreciate and wear this fragrance. I don't know if this is the most wearable fragrance, but then again, maybe I just don't have the taste for such a fragrance because this is extremely out of my comfort zone, you guys. Like, I remember the first time I was trying this fragrance, I was shocked. I had like a moment where like my brain just like froze. I was smelling it and smelling it and smelling it, and I was here in this arm. I would hold the sample here, I would hold the pen to write, and I was like in my mind, what to even write? Like, what am I even smelling? Because I was not able to put into words what I was smelling. Yeah, I think the rubbery accord is the one that's the most highlighted. And then you have this something molecular about it. I don't know what to tell you about this fragrance. I know for sure this is a love or hate type of fragrance. This is one of those fragrances that unless you are extremely confident to wear it, it is the fragrance that wears you, if you ask me. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about this fragrance, honestly. Definitely not a safe blind buy, but if you are one and you love ambiguous fragrances, if you are one and you love this kind of more, clearly this is anything but generic, you know, this is anything but made to be liked by everyone. So if you love this kind of fragrances, give this a go because performance is, believe me, it lasts more than you want it to last. So I think I will close off the video here because I've tried 5 fragrances. I have other 5 fragrances left. Let me just briefly mention them in case you're interested, so you know what will come in the third part of the video. So I have here a fragrance that's called Colossal, I think. I have here a fragrance that's called Green Mandarin. This is an inspiration of a fragrance from Jo Malone. I have here a fragrance that's called Heritage Elixir. This is the extract version, and this is a dupe to something from Parfums de Marly. I have here a fragrance that's called Majestic Empire. Guys, this is a dupe to Herod, again from Parfums de Marly. And last but not least, I have here Rouge Mystique. This is their inspiration of something from BDK, Rouge something. Again, I will add it here on the screen. So yeah, these are the 5 fragrances left, and I'm hoping to test more. I want to test more from Rogue because getting a feel of the brand, I can tell you, sorry for the noise, getting a feel of their fragrances, I can tell you that they really know how to create an inspiration that doesn't feel like it takes a little bit of that OG fragrance and it stretches it out to the maximum, you know? Like when you smell this fragrance, like if I would smell these fragrances blindly, especially some of them, I wouldn't think they're inspirations. I would genuinely think this is like the OG fragrance because of how luxurious and refined and smooth and harmonious they smell, you know? And because I detect nothing sharp, nothing flat, nothing cheap, like the texture is done well, the scent is done well, even in those that I do not, like I can physically not tolerate them, like this one is just too much for me. But again, from like a quality perspective, absolutely nothing to complain. It's just this is so edgy and creative, that's not for me for sure. So yes, those were my thoughts on these fragrances. Thank you so much for watching. These will be the fragrances I will cover in the third part of the video, and hopefully many others, because like I've mentioned, I am curious to try many other of their fragrances. Don't forget, if any of these fragrances, let's just say, sparked your curiosity, you can find samples and decants on Dubai collection, and the code AFG10 gives you an extra 10% off. Feel free to use it, feel free to not use it. Hopefully I will see you in my next video. Don't forget you can follow me on Instagram. If you want to tell me anything, please put it in the comment section and I promise that I will get back to you. But yes, thank you so much for watching, you guys. I will see you in my next video, but until then I want to wish you an amazing day wherever you are. Bye.